You're at dinner, telling a story, feeling relaxed, until she cuts you off mid-sentence. "That's not how it happened," she says, rolling her eyes, laughing as everyone turns toward you. The room falls silent for a second that feels like forever. You feel your face heat up. Everyone's watching, and she's smiling, not kindly, not playfully, but with the satisfaction of someone who just made you look small. Most people think moments like this are harmless. A misunderstanding, a joke, something not worth reacting to. But it isn't random, it's not accidental, it's a subtle act of domination, a form of psychological warfare played out in public, disguised as humor or correction. When someone humiliates you in front of others, the issue isn't the story you told wrong or the detail you forgot. It's about power, the unspoken battle for social control and emotional leverage. Public humiliation is a message. I can disrespect you, and you won't do anything about it. And unless you recognize what's happening and know how to respond, it will repeat itself again and again, each time cutting deeper into your confidence and self-respect. The truth is simple. Disrespect doesn't happen in isolation. It's tested, it's measured, and it escalates only when allowed. The moment you laugh off a cutting joke or accept being corrected in front of others without saying a word, you're unconsciously training people to treat you that way. You're signaling, "I'm safe to mock. I won't defend myself." Think about it. People test boundaries constantly. Some do it playfully, others maliciously. But predators of any kind, emotional or otherwise, have the same instinct. They sense weakness. Like blood in the water to a shark, your passivity becomes an invitation. I once worked with a client whose girlfriend had a habit of making jokes about his income at parties. "Oh, he can't afford that," she'd say with a smirk. "I'm the one who really pays the bills." Everyone would laugh awkwardly, unsure how to react while he sat there dying inside. For years he stayed silent, thinking keeping peace was better than confrontation. But peace built on humiliation isn't peace, it's quiet suffering. The turning point came one night when, instead of laughing it off, he said calmly, "Actually, that's private information. Please don't share our finances with others." His voice was level, his tone firm. She froze. Not because she suddenly respected him, but because he finally showed he respected himself. The humiliation stopped that night, permanently. Public humiliation thrives in silence. When you don't respond, you validate the behavior. The person doing it feels powerful, the audience feels awkward, and your status subtly drops in everyone's mind. That's the real cost. Not just the sting of embarrassment, but the invisible social downgrade that follows. Because make no mistake, public humiliation is a social performance. It's a show, and you're the prop. When someone mocks you in front of others, they're not just expressing frustration, they're broadcasting dominance. They're telling everyone watching, "I rank above this person." And most people won't consciously notice this, but they'll feel it. They'll start treating you accordingly, with slightly less respect, slightly less warmth, slightly more pity. This kind of behavior often comes from insecurity. Maybe your success, your confidence, or even the attention you receive threatens their sense of importance. So they use public humiliation as a way to re-establish control, to push you back down into a role that feels safe for them. It's emotional terrorism disguised as casual banter. Take another example. A friend of mine dated a woman who mocked his hobbies relentlessly. He loved restoring classic cars, something that gave him pride and peace. At gatherings, she'd laugh. "He spends all weekend playing with his little toy cars." Everyone would chuckle, but inside he felt belittled. It wasn't about cars, it was about control. Later he realized she envied the fact that he had something meaningful outside of her, a source of joy that didn't depend on her approval. So she attacked it, trying to destroy what she couldn't participate in. This is the core truth. Insecurity seeks control. Secure people don't need to humiliate others to feel strong. They build others up. Insecure people tear others down because that's the only way they can feel tall. But what allows this behavior to persist is the absence of boundaries. Every time you let someone mock you without consequence, you move the line of respect backward. It starts as a joke, then comes public correction, then open ridicule. Before long, you're the designated punchline at every social event, and everyone assumes it's just how things are. The audience plays a bigger role than most realize. Humiliation requires witnesses. The laughter, the silence, the awkward glances, they all amplify the pain. The humiliator feeds off this social energy, performing dominance for others to see. It's not about hurting you privately, it's about gaining social validation by doing it publicly. And here's the tragic part. The more it happens, the more you internalize it. You begin expecting it, almost bracing for it. You start self-deprecating before anyone else can, trying to control the blow. You smile when you're the joke because you think that's the only way to keep people from turning against you. But each time you do, you reinforce your role as the one who gets humiliated. Understanding this dynamic is the first step to breaking free. You cannot change how others behave, but you can change what you tolerate. The first moment someone disrespects you publicly, no matter how small, is your chance to reset the pattern. Don't wait until it escalates. Calmly, directly assert your boundary. And that's where the transformation begins, not with anger or revenge, but with composure. Because power isn't in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. Public humiliation isn't random, it's strategic. Whether the person doing it realizes it or not, it serves a very specific psychological purpose: control. It's a power play that takes place in front of an audience because humiliation doesn't just damage your emotions, it reshapes how others perceive you. When someone embarrasses you publicly, they're not simply criticizing you, they're performing dominance. It's an announcement to the room that you're beneath them. The laughter, the awkward silence, the glances exchanged between others, all of it reinforces that shift. Status, even in small social groups, is fluid. Every interaction subtly rearranges who stands where. Humiliation is a fast and brutal way to push someone down the ladder while climbing up it. That's why public humiliation often happens when a person feels insecure about their own position. Maybe you've started earning more, becoming more confident, or receiving more attention. Maybe your friends or colleagues have begun to admire your discipline or success. To someone who feels threatened by that, publicly cutting you down is a way to rebalance the equation. It's their attempt to say, don't forget who's really in charge. This behavior can appear in every type of relationship: romantic, professional, even familial. The dynamics are eerily similar. In romantic relationships, one partner might make jokes about the other's intelligence, appearance, or abilities. In workplaces, it takes the form of public corrections or sarcastic remarks in meetings. The intent is always the same: to show superiority. What's interesting is that the person doing it often rationalizes their behavior. They'll say things like, "I was just joking," or "Don't take it so seriously." This isn't harmless teasing, it's manipulation. It's designed to make you doubt your right to feel disrespected. If they can convince you that you're too sensitive, they get to keep humiliating you without consequences. That's the brilliance and the poison of psychological games like this. Think about how these interactions feel afterward. You go home, replaying the moment in your head, questioning yourself. Was I overreacting? Maybe I should have laughed it off. That's exactly the trap. They want you in that loop of self-doubt because someone who doubts themselves is easy to control. The deeper psychological mechanism behind this is what I call status anxiety, the fear of losing one's perceived position in a social hierarchy. People who depend on external validation to feel secure use public humiliation as a defense mechanism. When they sense you're rising, they push you down to feel stable again. It's not about you, it's about their fear of being irrelevant. This is why confident people rarely humiliate others. True confidence doesn't need comparison. It doesn't need an audience. A secure person can disagree privately, correct gently, or let small things go. Insecure people can't. They need to demonstrate their power publicly because that's the only place they feel it exists. I've seen this play out hundreds of times in couples therapy. One partner interrupts, mocks, or dismisses the other mid-conversation, not because of the topic, but because of what the interaction represents. They're subconsciously saying, "Look at me. I still have control here." And the audience, friends, family, co-worker, plays a crucial role in reinforcing it. Public humiliation needs witnesses. The act alone isn't enough. The humiliation only works when others see it. That's why it's rarely done in private. The goal isn't just to make you feel small, it's to make others see you as small. Every reaction you have in those first few seconds matters. Laugh nervously, and you've given silent permission. Get visibly angry, and they'll twist the narrative: you're overreacting. But if you stay calm, if you respond firmly and clearly without losing your composure, you remove their power completely. The performance ends because the audience sees something new: restraint, strength, control. Let me give you an example. A client once told me his wife would undermine his parenting in front of their friends. "He has no idea what he's doing with the kids," she'd say with a laugh. Everyone would chuckle politely, and he'd sit there, embarrassed. Then one evening he replied, steady, neutral, "We can talk about parenting privately later. For now, let's just enjoy dinner. No anger, no defensiveness, just a boundary." The laughter stopped. She never did it again. Why? Because the game wasn't fun anymore. Humiliation only works when it provokes emotion. When it doesn't, it loses all value. This is why self-mastery, the ability to control your emotions, is the ultimate shield. People who try to humiliate you feed off reaction. They want your shame, your frustration, your visible discomfort. Those emotions are their fuel. But when you stay grounded, unmoved, they starve. You reveal that their words have no control over your identity. This doesn't mean being passive, it means being strategic. The goal isn't to win the argument, it's to deny them the drama they're seeking. By staying composed, you shift the spotlight back onto them. Their cruelty becomes obvious, their insecurity exposed, because humiliation says far more about the humiliator than the humiliated. Secure people uplift others. Insecure ones can't stand seeing someone else at peace. Every time someone feels the need to mock you publicly, they're broadcasting their own instability. Their attempt to appear powerful is actually an admission of weakness. Ask yourself, have you ever seen a truly confident person publicly humiliate someone? Of course not. They're too focused on their own growth to waste time tearing others down. The people who do it are the ones who feel powerless, desperate to steal significance from anyone nearby. Recognizing this dynamic changes everything. Once you understand that public humiliation is a reflection of their insecurity, not your inadequacy, you stop taking it personally, you stop defending yourself, you start observing. And that shift from emotional reaction to calm observation is the beginning of real power, because when you no longer give them the reaction they're searching for, the hierarchy collapses, their dominance disappears, and for the first time you stand as their equal or higher without ever raising your voice. When public humiliation happens, it doesn't just affect two people, the one humiliating and the one being humiliated. It transforms the entire social environment. Every person present becomes part of the equation, whether they laugh, stay silent, or look away. Their reactions or lack thereof shape the meaning of the event. In that moment, something subtle but powerful takes place. Your position in the social hierarchy is redefined. Public humiliation functions like a social ritual, one that lowers one person's perceived value and raises another's. Even if the words themselves seem small, their effect ripples through the group. Respect shifts, tone changes, the atmosphere adjusts. The people around you aren't neutral, they're social creatures wired to recognize dominance and submission. When someone mocks you and you don't respond, it sends a signal to everyone present. This person can be disrespected without consequence. It's an unspoken lesson that others absorb instantly. From that moment on, some will start to treat you differently. Maybe more casually, maybe with less respect. It happens almost invisibly, but you feel it. This is what makes public humiliation so dangerous. It's not just emotional pain, it's social repositioning. Once you're established as the person others can ridicule, it's incredibly hard to reclaim authority or respect. The group dynamic has accepted a new order, and social systems naturally resist change. Think about how this works in long-term relationships. If a man's partner mocks him repeatedly in front of friends or family, correcting him, making him the butt of jokes, laughing at his expense, those watching begin to see him as weaker, even if they don't consciously realize it. Over time, this perception sticks. It doesn't matter if he's strong, competent, or successful in other areas. In that social circle, his role is now the one who gets embarrassed, and it spreads like wildfire. Soon others start doing it too. They'll join in on the jokes or at least not stop them. What began as one person's insecurity-driven behavior becomes a collective performance. Now the entire group participates in your degradation, not out of malice but out of habit. It becomes entertainment. This is how people lose entire relationships, not just romantic ones but friendships, family connections, even careers without realizing why. Once humiliation becomes normal, dignity erodes quietly, bit by bit. The good news is that this process can be reversed, but only through decisive, early intervention. The first instance of public disrespect is your line in the sand. Address it clearly and calmly. Don't laugh it off, don't match their energy, and don't explode in anger. Simply hold your ground. A simple sentence like, "I'd prefer if we didn't joke about that," said firmly and without apology, resets the dynamic immediately. The key is timing. You have about 3 seconds to act before the moment cements itself in people's minds. The longer you stay silent, the more power you lose. The goal isn't to humiliate back, it's to restore equilibrium. You're showing everyone that your dignity is not up for public debate. Now let's talk about why the audience matters so much. Humiliation only works when others are watching because the presence of witnesses multiplies emotional impact. Alone, the words would sting. In public, they pierce. The laughter of others becomes the echo of your shame. It's not just that someone disrespected you, it's that everyone saw it happen, and that visibility changes everything. The person humiliating you isn't just attacking you, they're performing for social approval. They're looking around after their remarks, scanning faces for validation. Did people laugh? Did anyone agree? Their self-esteem rises not from your pain, but from the group's reaction to your pain. Once you understand that, you start seeing the mechanics behind it. It's not about truth, it's about theater. You're dealing with a person who needs an audience to feel powerful. Without it, they're nothing. That's why the most powerful move you can make isn't retaliation, it's composure. By staying calm, you break the performance. You take away the reaction, the energy, the social fuel. The moment you stop playing your assigned role, the one who gets embarrassed, the whole act falls apart. Now imagine this from the outside. When the audience sees someone attempt to humiliate another person, but the target responds with calm confidence, the energy in the room shifts instantly. Suddenly, the funny one looks insecure, the quiet one looks strong. People sense the imbalance and start reassessing. Respect returns to the person who stood firm, and discomfort attaches to the one who needed cruelty for attention. This dynamic explains why stoicism, calm strength, is so effective. It doesn't suppress emotion, it channels it. You might feel anger, embarrassment, or shock, but you don't let it dictate your behavior. You respond like someone who knows their worth, and everyone watching feels that. Humiliation doesn't destroy you because of what's said. It destroys you because you start believing what's implied, that you're powerless to defend yourself. That's why rebuilding dignity starts internally. You must reclaim the belief that your voice matters, that your boundaries are valid, that you have every right to demand respect. The phrase demand respect doesn't mean shouting or intimidating, it means requiring it through self-respect. People mirror the energy you carry. If you act like your dignity is negotiable, others will negotiate it for you. If you treat it as non-negotiable, others adjust their behavior accordingly. When you shift from emotional reaction to quiet strength, something profound happens. The audience, that same crowd that once watched silently, starts to respect you again. Some might even apologize privately later, saying they didn't realize how bad it was until you stopped allowing it. Because here's the truth. Deep down, everyone respects boundaries, even those who test them. The moment they see you enforce yours with composure, you rise in status. You've just rewritten the social script. When humiliation becomes a pattern, it doesn't just bruise your pride, it changes your brain. Every public embarrassment leaves a neurological footprint, reshaping how you think, react, and even move through the world. Over time, your nervous system starts anticipating humiliation before it even happens, preparing for pain that hasn't yet arrived. Here's how it works. The amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for fear and threat detection, becomes hyperactive after repeated public humiliation. It begins to associate social situations with danger. Something as simple as walking into a dinner with friends or joining a group conversation can trigger a low-grade stress response, heart rate up, shallow breathing, muscles tensed. You're not imagining that anxiety, it's your body remembering humiliation. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, composure, and confidence, weakens under chronic stress. That's why people who experience public humiliation often start doubting themselves in unrelated areas. They second-guess their words, hesitate before speaking, and shrink in group settings. The humiliation doesn't stay confined to the original event. It spreads like a virus through every aspect of self-expression. This biological shift creates what psychologists call learned helplessness. It's the sense that no matter what you do, you'll be embarrassed again, so why fight back? You start avoiding confrontation entirely. You tolerate more. You laugh off comments that hurt. You minimize your achievements so others don't feel threatened. You start living smaller, not because you want to, but because humiliation has trained your brain to see safety in invisibility. That's not life, that's survival. I've seen this play out countless times in long-term relationships. One partner slowly loses their confidence while the other becomes increasingly dominant. What started as jokes or corrections evolves into open ridicule. The dynamic shifts from partnership to hierarchy. Eventually, the humiliated person stops contributing opinions, stops defending themselves, stops being fully present. They exist to keep the peace, not to be respected. What's even more damaging is when this happens in front of children. Kids watching one parent publicly mock the other, internalize the behavior. Sons grow up believing men should tolerate disrespect. Daughters learn that belittling men is acceptable. The humiliation becomes generational, a legacy of unspoken pain disguised as humor. In professional environments, the same mechanism applies. Imagine a manager who consistently undermines an employee in meetings, interrupting, mocking, dismissing ideas. Over time, that employee's voice fades. They stop volunteering ideas altogether. Their creativity collapses under fear. And yet, if that same behavior happened privately, it would be easier to address. The public nature is what makes it destructive. It recruits the group against the individual, turning humiliation into social validation. And that's what makes this so insidious. Public humiliation is one of the few forms of abuse society still laughs at, especially when it targets men. We've been conditioned by movies, sitcoms, and social media to find the clueless boyfriend or incompetent husband trope funny. A woman rolling her eyes at her partner on camera gets likes, not criticism. A man doing the same would be condemned. This double standard normalizes female-to-male humiliation as entertainment. But make no mistake, it's not harmless comedy. It's emotional abuse with an audience. And the longer it goes unchecked, the more corrosive it becomes. The emotional toll is profound. People who endure repeated public humiliation often develop anxiety disorders, depression, and chronic stress symptoms. Their sleep deteriorates, their focus declines. Some even develop psychosomatic issues, back pain, headaches, digestive problems, all rooted in the constant state of tension their body carries. Over time, humiliation alters identity itself. You start to see yourself as the lesser one, the brain, trying to protect you, rewires itself to avoid further pain by accepting inferiority as normal. You become comfortable with discomfort. You tell yourself it's not that bad. That's how dignity dies, not in one blow, but in a slow erosion of self-worth. Breaking this pattern requires more than confidence. It requires reconstruction. It's like rebuilding after a natural disaster. You can't just patch the surface. You have to rebuild the foundation, your values, your self-concept, your internal boundaries. The first step is recognition. You have to name it. Public humiliation isn't a personality quirk or just how they are. It's abuse. And calling it by its name strips it of power. The second step is boundaries. When it happens again, and it likely will, you must address it immediately. Calmly, clearly, without anger. That's inappropriate. I'd appreciate if you didn't speak to me that way in front of others. That sentence is uncomfortable the first time you say it, but discomfort is the cost of growth. Each time you draw that line, you reclaim a piece of yourself. The third step is detachment from validation. People who humiliate others thrive on reaction. When you stop reacting emotionally, defensively, apologetically, you break the cycle. They lose the payoff. The performance collapses. And finally, you rebuild your environment. Surround yourself with people who respect you, who treat dignity as the baseline, not the reward. When you make respect a requirement, not a request, your entire world begins to shift. It's important to understand that this healing process isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong and centered, others you'll feel triggered by old memories. That's normal. The brain takes time to rewire. But every boundary enforced, every moment of calm self-assertion creates a new neural pathway, one that tells your mind and body, I am safe when I protect my dignity. What's waiting on the other side of this process is freedom, not just from the people who humiliated you, but from the part of yourself that accepted it. Because at its core, this journey isn't about revenge or dominance, it's about restoration. The restoration of your self-respect, your confidence, and your right to exist without being diminished. Freedom from public humiliation doesn't come when the other person stops, it comes when you stop allowing it. That's the final, uncomfortable truth. Because every act of humiliation is an invitation to choose, defend your dignity, or surrender it for temporary peace. And the moment you start choosing yourself, everything begins to change. This process isn't about aggression, it's about alignment. You're not trying to dominate anyone, you're establishing equilibrium. You're saying, my dignity is not up for negotiation, and that single decision redefines every interaction you'll ever have. The first step in breaking the cycle permanently is clarity. You must become hyper-aware of the early signs of public disrespect. It often starts small, a joke that makes you uncomfortable, a story told at your expense, a correction in front of others. These are tests, whether conscious or not. If you laugh along, the line moves. The next time, the joke is sharper, the tone harsher. Before long, you've been trained to tolerate humiliation under the disguise of humor. When that first test appears, stop it early. You don't need anger, you need composure. A simple, calm statement like, "That's not funny to me," is enough. It signals awareness, boundaries, and self-respect, three things that make would-be humiliators deeply uncomfortable. The second step is understanding the respect test. The moment you enforce a boundary, pay close attention to the response. Someone who truly respects you will feel remorse, even embarrassment for crossing the line. They'll apologize and their behavior will change. But someone who thrives on control will get angry. They'll accuse you of being too sensitive, of not being able to take a joke. That's your answer. They're not sorry they hurt you. They're angry they can't anymore. From that point forward, you have a choice. Remain in the relationship and accept the pattern, or walk away and reclaim your peace. Not every relationship is worth saving, and not every person deserves another chance to humiliate you. The third step is self-forgiveness. This is where most people struggle. They carry shame not only from being humiliated, but from allowing it for so long. But remember, you weren't weak, you were uninformed. You were doing what most people do when faced with emotional manipulation, trying to keep the peace. You didn't know that peace without respect is just quiet submission. Forgive yourself for not knowing better, then use that guilt as fuel for growth. Every time you choose self-respect now, you're rewriting the narrative of your past. As you rebuild, you'll notice something unexpected. The people who used to laugh at your expense will start to pull away. That's good. Those relationships were built on imbalance, not connection. And once you remove humiliation from the equation, the bond collapses because it was never real to begin with. The people who remain will be those who value you as an equal. At the same time, new types of people will begin to appear. Confident people, respectful people, people who see strength in boundaries instead of weakness. That's because confidence is magnetic, and when you stop accepting disrespect, you emit an entirely different energy. There's also something paradoxical that often happens. The person who once humiliated you may suddenly become more interested in you when you stop tolerating it. But don't mistake this for respect. It's not admiration, it's challenge. Some people are drawn to resistance because it reawakens the same control dynamic they're addicted to. If they truly change, it will show in their consistent behavior over time, not in sudden affection after being confronted. The goal isn't to teach anyone a lesson, it's to protect your peace. Next comes the reprogramming phase, retraining your mind to expect and require respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, even in small moments, you're rewiring neural pathways. You're teaching your brain that dignity equals safety. Over time, this becomes second nature. The hesitation fades. The fear of confrontation disappears. Speaking up no longer feels like conflict. It feels like self-care. Understand that the world mirrors your standards. If you've spent years accepting humiliation, people will keep testing you until your new boundaries prove unshakable. Expect pushback, expect disbelief, expect tests. Each one is an opportunity to strengthen your resolve. Every calm response builds the new version of you, one who no longer trades dignity for acceptance. And something remarkable happens when you cross that threshold. The anxiety that once filled social situations begins to fade. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop fearing the next joke or correction. You show up differently, taller, calmer, sharper. That inner confidence radiates and others sense it. This is the essence of masculine composure, not suppression, but control, the power to feel emotion fully and still respond with intention, the ability to be challenged publicly without losing your center. When you reach that point, humiliation can no longer touch you because it no longer defines you. The deeper truth is that people who humiliate others are revealing themselves, not exposing you. They're showing the world their own insecurity, their lack of empathy, their desperate need for validation. Their actions are confessions disguised as jokes, understanding that transforms how you see them, not as powerful but as weak. That realization sets you free. From then on, your standard becomes simple. Respect is the entry price to my presence. You don't need to announce it, you just live it. The people who understand it will stay. The ones who don't will drift away. Either outcome serves your peace, because dignity isn't something you earn from others, it's something you decide to keep, every day, in every moment, no matter who's watching. So here's the call to action. Decide today that your self-respect is non-negotiable. Decide that no relationship, friendship, or audience is worth sacrificing your dignity. Decide that the next time someone tries to make you small, you'll meet it with calm strength, not anger, not fear, but certainty, because that's where your real power lives. When you stop accepting public humiliation, you stop living as a reflection of someone else's insecurity. You become your own mirror, clear, grounded, unshakable. And that's the moment the game ends forever.